Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Solutions to the Dropout Crisis on this beautiful spring day in Clemson, South Carolina. I hope the weather is nice where you are today. This is Sam Drew with the National Dropout Prevention Center, and I'm here with my co-host and colleague, Marty Duckenfield, and we welcome all of you to this monthly radio webcast brought to you by the National Dropout Prevention Center at Clemson University in partnership with Clemson Radio Productions and the generous support of Penn Foster and Catapult Learning.
Yes, it is a beautiful day here today. I don't know what it's like where you are, but we've got spring here, and it's really kind of nice day to be outside. So we really appreciate you if you have chosen to listen to us today. But it's going to be a wonderful professional development opportunity once again. We have some new listeners today, and we welcome you to the program. It's going to be a great one. And we've been looking forward to this one, I think, all year long. And so we're really happy to have that today. But so let's get started because, gosh, there's a lot to learn. First of all, especially for the new listeners, but all of us, I need to remind you of the materials that are posted on this website for today's program. First and foremost is that slide presentation. And you'll see that right up at the top there. It's a PowerPoint. And you will need that during the presentation today. It supports the discussion, so have that open and ready to go. There's some excellent articles this time about career and technical education, and maybe you read them before the program, but if you haven't, they will be very useful afterwards to reinforce what you are going to learn today. One of the resources was an actual video, a panel discussion led by our own Terry Cash with Sam Stringfield and Stephen Plank on the connection between CTE and dropout prevention, so I really recommend that. And then also, as always, we alert you to some great websites, one for the Association for Career and Technical Education, another for the National Research Center for CTE, and then there's that one called Career Clusters, which serves as kind of like a clearinghouse. So, Sam, a very focused list of resources, great support for really understanding the topic of career and technical education and its role in dropout prevention.
Absolutely, Marty. And these resources are so important, really, to this webcast. Here you have the advantage of hearing and interacting with our guests each month. But there's only so much we can do in an hour, and we're always left wanting more information. So the importance of these resources really are to give you, our listeners, more in-depth knowledge of this topic, and they're not meant to be exhaustive, but just some additional resources that you might be able to use as you do professional development with these sessions.
Well, I think that's a key point to make, too, because professional development isn't just a one-day thing. It should be ongoing. And so we're really hopeful that you'll find these resources useful as you carry on your learning more about CTE. Now, one of the great things about doing radio webcasts on the radio is you have the opportunity to engage in discussion with our presenters. So we will invite you throughout the program to consider being an active part. What you can do is contact us first by our toll-free number. It's 888-539-8859, and it's written there on the web page. Again, that's 888-539-8859. And if you're calling from outside the U.S., the number would be 864-656-4549. Now, you can start calling now or any time during the program, and we'll put you on hold until we find the appropriate time to get the questions in. Now, all of our callers today will receive a copy of a free book of your choice from the National Dropout Prevention Center. Eric will take down your email address and your phone number so we can contact you about which one you'd like to receive.
And I want to remind all of our callers that you still have this one last chance to have your names put in a hat for a drawing that we will do after the broadcast today. So be sure and stay tuned for that. Remember, anyone who calls in will have their name put in a hat, and we will draw from that hat this afternoon, and you will receive a free registration to the 2011 National Dropout Prevention Network Conference, which will be held in Chicago.
Yep.
So not too late. call in today. If you've not called before or you've been reluctant to call, be sure and call in today. Hopefully not simply to get your name put in the hat, but
yeah, you got to have a good question.
Nice bonus for that.
Well, I've always found in these kinds of things that the last people to call, their little name is on the top of the pile. So, but although other listeners who have called before, I'm going to stir it before we pull it out. So we'll be totally fair. But it's going to be fun to see who wins and who we're going to get to meet at the conference. Now, we also accept email questions sent to our email address, which is ndpc@clemson.edu, and put the word solutions in the subject line so it'll pop out at us. We'll try to get to as many of those questions as well. And, as always, we're looking forward to your involvement in the program.
Our topic this month is career and technical education, and I think we subtitled it Key to Education Reform and Preparing the Future Workforce. And it very much will be about the connection between career and technical education and dropout prevention. As you know, career and technical education long has been one of the 15 strategies advocated by the National Dropout Prevention Center, and I think today's broadcast will shed quite a bit of light on that and why it's such a good strategy. We have with us today, and as Marty said, we are so very happy to have her, from the offices of the Association for Career and Technical Education, Jan Bray, who is Executive Director of ACTE. Jan, we are very delighted to have you join us today and to share your expertise with us and with our listeners.
Thank you, Sam and Marty. I'm really pleased to be here. It's an important topic, one near and dear both to my heart as well as to the organization. So I look forward to sharing with all of your listeners information on CTE and the issue of dropout prevention.
Over the past several years, through work that I have done directly and indirectly with the center, I've come to see more and more how career and technical education, when it's well implemented, is having a very positive impact on performance of our children and on the whole of school reform, in my opinion. I think the development of career pathways, and you'll hear Jan talk today about programs of study, are really not what some people still think of as the old voc ed, but a real effort to develop a future workforce for our country and to improve schools. The success of CTE engaging young people in their learning really can't be overstated, and I think it's such a key to dropout prevention. So we are eager to learn more about this particular approach. It's not a new approach, but I think, as you'll hear from Jan today, there are lots of new things happening with CTE and a new vision really for CTE into the future, I think. And we're very fortunate to have Jan with us today because she really is in the thick of things and sits at the hub of the action related to CTE. And let me just take care of one quick order of business, Jan, and then we'll move on with your presentation. I want to remind our listeners again that they can call us with their questions. The number is toll-free, 888-539-8859. If you're outside of the U.S., it is not a free call, unfortunately, but the number is 864-656-4549. And we have had some callers from out of the States, and we would love to hear from you. So, Jan, let's go to your PowerPoint and learn more about CTE.
Great. Thanks, Sam. I really appreciate it. And hopefully I'll remember to turn the pages of the PowerPoint. So let's get off the title page. I'm asked all the time about career and technical education, and is it for those who aren't going on to college? Isn't it for certain kinds of occupations? And is it the vocational focus? And basically, I want to start off by just talking about how we see career and technical education. It's really very simple. CTE is about providing knowledge and skills that enable individuals to be successful in the career pathway of their choice. And that's important. It really is about connecting individuals with their education and training and with being successful citizens and moving on in their life. And that's the heart of career and technical education. So if we go to the next slide, let's look just for a moment about why CTE is important. And certainly CTE, it links students to the community through work-based learning opportunities. They get to find out what's happening outside in that community, what are their potentials, if they're trying to figure out where they want to work after school, whether it's high school or college, and they want to stay in the neighborhood. That's how they can figure out where best can I fit in. It's also how the community can help hold on to their young citizens, is by training them for jobs where there is opportunity right there in that community, rather than having them graduate and then go off looking for it elsewhere. Because basically CTE, bottom line, it provides relevance. It answers the question, why do I need to know this? It prepares people for the next step, whether it's going into work, going into post-secondary. It helps them move to the next step. There's also a growing need globally, not just in this country, for credentials, industry credentials, post-secondary education. So CTE is that connection between high school and post-secondary education. It gives them that pathway, that track. Again, it is that relevance that they need. And it's also provides that hands-on learning. One of the things that has always set CTE apart from other education, but I hope down the road this is no longer the case, because we believe all education should be this way, is that it is project-based, that it actually allows students to participate in their learning, to do, and to have that experiential learning rather than just theory, rather than listening to a lecture. And it does connect between what the education is they're taking and the careers. So if we go to the next slide and let's look at some of the research that's out there, we know that 90% of the fastest growing jobs are going to require some kind of education beyond high school. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the 20 fastest growing occupations, 10 will require an associate's degree. And of those 20 with the largest number of new jobs projected for 2018, 13 are going to require some kind of on-the-job training or associate's degree. So yes, a high school diploma is really not enough anymore. It is some kind of post-secondary. The job track that an individual is going on will help determine whether it's a 1-year certificate or apprenticeship program, a 2-year associate's, or a 4-year degree. As the slide shows, those from the SREB, the Southern Regional Education Board, students at schools that integrate the academics with the CTE, which again is about the relevance and the hands-on, have significantly higher student achievement in reading, math, and science than students at schools that don't integrate their programs. And according to the National Research Center for Career and Technical Education, a ratio of 1 CT class for every 2 academic classes was shown to minimize the risk of students dropping out. I do want to say one of our members, past president of ours, who's in Sturgis High School in Sturgis, South Dakota, a rural community, 96.6% of their CTE students graduated from high school. That's far above the average, the national average of 70%. So obviously CTE is doing something for these people.
Yeah, it's a powerful connection, isn't it, Janet? And for the reasons that you've just cited, that question of why do I need to know this? I'll bet that there are very few teachers that have not heard that question in their class, and as you've pointed out, I think this gives students a much deeper understanding of the subject matter that they're learning and how they actually will use that.
Well, absolutely, Sam. And I tell you, and I know we all have them in our family, so I know my family's not alone in this, but I would rather have a young person at the end of high school, say, who went in and took a dental hygienist program, to say, you know what? I really don't like doing that, than to take a 2 or 4 year program, saddle themselves with debt, and then say, I don't want to do that, and have to start over again. Absolutely. Too many young people are graduating from college still not knowing what they want to do. And that's a tremendous loss of human capital, actually, in this country. So the question always becomes, at what time are we going to start helping our young people figure out where do they want to go with their life? How do they want to apply their strengths, their talents, and their real interests? And to make a living that way, when do we start doing that? And the challenge is too much in the past. We've waited till they're much older and too late, and then we wonder why we have a dropout problem.
Yep.
Yeah.
Good point.
Jan, we have a caller who's been waiting a few minutes, and so I love to include our audience whenever we can. So maybe we can take a quick break here and talk to Bob from Texas. Welcome to the program, Bob.
Well, you started right along the same lines of thinking I already had. I believe, like you do, that we need for most of our students to consider post-secondary education and training, and I lump the two together because you need one or the other. But how can we better, as high schools, ensure that the students do not drop out after they leave us and enter those programs?
You mean after they leave the high school?
What can we do in high school to set up success for beyond us is another way of asking my question.
Sure. Well, there are a couple of things, and some of these will be referenced in the slides later, but let's address them now. One of the new trends, trend's not a right word because it's actually a growing requirement under the federal legislation, is the programs of study. The programs of study is curriculum that aligns secondary and post-secondary education, that shows a young student. Because if they have a goal, if they know, look, I want to be an automotive technician. And so it shows them, here's the job you can get at the end of high school and what you can make. And here's the education you need and the kind of job and salary you'll get if you go to this 1-year program or a 2-year program. If you have a desire to go into management, you need this. It's really that students, it's not that they don't want to go on. Obviously, there are some people that don't have the financial wherewithal to do it, but it's that they just don't know. They don't have any idea, why do I need to spend my time? My God, I just graduated high school. I'm tired of school. I just want to go make some money. And they don't have any idea that another year of program will help them make a whole lot more money, which is a driver for a lot of these kids. And so part of it is we have to, number one, give them the information. We do not do a good job in career guidance because there are not enough career guidance individuals out there. We don't do a good job in providing information to our young people. And the third thing is we need to give them experience in the workplace through internships, through co-op programs, through mentorships, where they can experience, where they can touch and feel and smell that workplace and get a sense of what it means to work, to get excited about it. We have to excite these young people today. They live in a different world than we do. They have, because of the internet, the world's at their fingertips. So we have to bring the world outside the classroom into that classroom to excite them. It isn't about the 4 walls in which we have those students. So it's important for educators, whether it's a teacher, a counselor, or administrator, to really help that student connect to what their life's going to be like outside that classroom. And there are a number of examples where that is happening that I'll talk about a little bit as we go further along.
Well, that's a really important question, Bob. Did you have a comment, Sam?
No, just that. It is a very important question, and I think Jan has answered that well, and I'm happy that she'll be talking more about programs of study later on in the presentation, and I think we could get more in-depth into that. But that assuring success beyond high school is important, and programs of study, I think, is the best opportunity we've had to date for that kind of alignment of secondary and post-secondary that needs to occur for this continuum from education toward careers.
Exactly. Well, Bob, be sure you leave your name and contact information with Eric and Chris back there and Bob, Bob is doing it, okay? And we'll put your name in the hat. Thank you for calling in. It was great having your participation.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And it is a very important question. Because that's the challenge that we all have. If we can go on to the next slide, which we've pretty much talked about, it basically just shows that, the need, 48.1% of all jobs by 2018 are going to require some form of college or an associate's degree. It's a fact of life, and we need to understand that, and we're also going to need to help our students understand it as well. Now, the next slide is a little complicated, and I apologize for that. It's from researchers, so anybody on here from the National Research Center, forgive me. But it's, well, researcher, they love their facts and figures. But we put it in here because I think it's important. It really does show the relationship between CTE and dropping out. And it's hard because more and more the pattern of taking CTE classes has changed because there's more academic classes that students are being forced to take. So they've had to look at this a little differently. But bottom line is that they looked at 4 distinct groups, and those that take some CTE credit, but less than 3 credits, with no real focus, occupational area focus, 56.1% of them, though, because they've had some CTE, are going to remain in school. Okay, they are persistent in graduating from high schools. Those with 3 CT credits but with no occupational areas fulfilled, it gives them another 7.6% on top of that. So you're looking at over 60%. Those with more than 3 credits, you're over 80% of those. So what it's showing is that we see a decrease in the odds of students dropping out of high school if they take 3 or more CT credits when compared to those taking less than 3 CT credits. So, and that's the bottom line that this chart is, chart is trying to show you, is that it is really the more CTE you take, the greater the chances are that you are going to stay in high school. And bottom line, that's what we're looking. And that's because we're doing relevance and we're connecting it to what they're doing. The other slide, the next slide, and I'm sure many of you have already seen this in the report, The Silent Epidemic, that was funded by the Gates Foundation. And they surveyed students as to why did they leave school, why did they drop out. And I always loved it. 47% said their classes weren't interesting. 43% missed too many days to catch up. 42% said they spent time with people who were not interested in school. 28% had too much freedom and not enough rules, and 35% is they were failing. But the 47% who weren't interesting and the not enough rules in their life, because when you're in CTE, if you're going to work, if you're going to be in a kitchen doing culinary arts, if you're in marketing and you're really trying to work on a project, if you're in the lab and you're doing a biomedical program, there are strict rules you need to follow, and students understand that because they understand the safety aspects of it and why it's important. So it gives them the structure that they need in life. It engages them, it provides those real-world applications, and it teaches them the employability skills that they're going to need when they get into the workforce. So again, it's evidence of how CTE is addressing the issues that are leading to students dropping out of high school. All right, so let's go to the next slide, which is as we look at the new education environment, and it is changing. We all know technology is impacting education. More and more courses are integrating technology into the curriculum. Certainly in CTE they are. And students are expecting the information to be delivered through electronic media. They live their lives on their phones, their smartphones. They live their lives texting, instant messaging, searching the internet. And we need to make sure to keep them engaged that our curriculum and our instructional strategies are taking advantage of this as well. So if we get in and it's using the textbook, even if we're using the internet, but it's nothing more than an electronic textbook, we have lost those kids. ACTE had a panel at its convention last December in Las Vegas, and on the panel, in addition to educators, we had 2 high school students. And they sort of pointed an accusatory finger at all of us. It's okay, it was a nice finger. But they pointed it and said, in order to do our projects and our reports, to do them the way we know they need to be done, we have to do it at home. We can't do it in class, study hall, or anywhere in school because you don't give us access to the web the way we need it. We have to, in order to access the sites we want, we have to go home. Now, number one, we lose a valuable learning opportunity to teach these kids how to discern what is good information, bad information on the internet, what are good sites and what are bad sites. And number two, we have now made school irrelevant to their life. It's a very damaging charge that they have given to us. So we need to make sure technology is used not only in the curriculum but as an instructional strategy that matches and marries what these students are doing in their lives. The other side of this also is we need more and more courses are being done online. Over the past decade, online learning has experienced significant growth at all levels of education. The number of elementary and secondary students taking online courses increased tenfold between 2001 and 2007 and jumped from about 200,000 students to over 2 million. And projections estimate this number could well reach double that over the next year or two. There are several reasons for the growth. It helps provide access to course materials that students might otherwise not have, especially in the rural areas. I was at a summit last week put on by the Education Commission of the states, and we talked on rural education, and the whole underlying theme, there were two themes that underlined it. One was career and technical education. The other one was online education. And while there are issues of connectivity, the way these students in these rural communities are going to have access to quality education is through online and distance learning. It allows, as we look at post-secondary, it allows working adults to more conveniently engage in post-secondary education. It provides for more individualized learning experience. And it can really provide students with a comprehensive set of academic, employability, and technical skills to ensure career readiness. So we're beginning to see that blend of the teacher being in there, the online, the use of technology. I was at Auburn Career Center in Concord Township, Ohio, and they have a technology resource center where they have a lot of courses, and they had Project Lead the Way in their pre-engineering course. The instructor in there, now students, all of the textbook learning was done at home by the students. It was on the web. They went up to it. They were assigned the chapters, and they were communicating back and forth with each other as well as with the teacher. The busiest night was Sunday night, which is not surprising given that they'd have to use that information on Monday. But they communicated back and forth online. These students were engaged. Classroom time was spent in applied learning, in doing projects, in taking what they learned in that textbook online and applying it into some kind of project. At the same time, in the classroom, the instructor was capturing those projects and what they were doing on an electronic whiteboard and was sending that back to the science teachers back in the home high school so that those teachers were continuing that learning for not only those students, but students that weren't in CTE. That's a phenomenal use of technology, very well used. And so we need to really think about how do we use technology. It is dramatically changing the shape of education. So the challenge for CTE, if we go to the next slide, really is that we're preparing students for jobs that don't yet exist, using technologies that haven't been invented yet, and finding creative ways to deliver programs with less money. Piece of cake, not a problem whatsoever. So, and it is a challenge, and we understand. At the same time, as you all well know, that the federal government, after 8 years of not increasing the funding for career and technical education, just cut the federal funds by $140 million. That's a significant cut, and the administration has proposed an even far greater cut for the FY12 budget. So we have tremendous challenges to do more, produce those outcomes, but to do it with less money, not only from the federal government, but we know state budgets are equally as tight.
Strange ironies. And also, depending on how you look at that too, I think it also really emphasizes the importance that in addition to academics, that there are these other skills that students are learning, the ability to think creatively and adapt to change and all those things that we see coming.
Well, absolutely. And let me just say, I probably have it on another slide, but, the topic right now everybody's talking about is college and career readiness. Mm-hmm. The challenge is when you ask them what it means, many people say that's getting into college without remediation. Mm-hmm. That's college ready. That's not career ready.
Exactly.
To be career ready, yes, you need to be college ready. Everybody should have the ability to enter into college without remediation. Absolutely agree 100%. But if you want to be career ready, in addition to that, you need to have those employability skills that employers are looking for, critical thinking, communication skills, interpersonal skills, leadership skills, etc. You need to have those employability skills, and you also need to have entry-level technical skills. Without all three, and it's not 2 out of 3, it's all 3. Without all 3, you are not career ready. So it's far harder to be career ready. And again, I'll go back to when are we going to start preparing these young people to be career ready? And that's a challenge we have in this country. So if we go to the next slide, there are, trends that we see in career and technical education. They're certainly good trends. There is a blurring of the lines between academic and CTE. More and more schools are presenting their academics through the application, through career and technical education. Many CTE courses, because of the rigorous academics embedded in them, are counted as academic credit towards high school graduation. And they do. CTE has always had academics embedded in it. We just never really called it out and recognized that. But today, to be an automotive technician, you better know, I have high IT skills. You better have good math skills. I tell you what, I don't want somebody coloring my hair who doesn't know how to read the label and doesn't understand chemistry. I don't want red hair. So the lines are blurring between academic and CTE. The increase in the number of career academies we're seeing is where everything is connected, the academics and the CTE programs. As we said before, CTE courses are using more technology in their instructional strategies. The programs of study, and again, we'll get to that, are more and more states requiring it that connect the secondary and the post-secondary. And you're seeing a tremendous increase in the number of CTE programs that are related to healthcare, STEM careers, and the area of sustainability and green jobs, those jobs that are in high demand. Career and technical education also, as program decisions are being made, needs to align itself to the economic needs of its community, of the state within which it operates. They should be joint. They should be together because CT's job, again, is to prepare individuals with the knowledge and skills they need to be successful in the career pathway of their choice. We shouldn't make them go and find education elsewhere or have to leave their state or their community when there are jobs right there that they could have been educated and trained for. So you're beginning to see a change. CTE used to be about, because this is the world of the workplace, that, it prepared you for a job right out of high school. The workplace those jobs aren't there anymore. It now is preparing you for the next step. People always ask me, how has CTE changed? And a lot of times I say it hasn't changed. It's that the workplace has changed. And if CTE is always preparing people for the workplace, then it itself had to change. And as the workplace required a greater level of math and reading and science and IT in order to be a successful worker, then CTE has to incorporate that into it as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, I've got a question here, Jan, that came from Iowa, from the Iowa Department of Education, from Cynthia, who asks this. I'm wondering if organizations like yours are figuring out how to do the Common Core through CTE classes so students don't have to sit in the biology classroom, but rather would receive all of their Common Core through the CTE courses. And she says, I'm thinking this would save many of our students.
Well, I agree with you 100%, and I can tell you this: ACT is, along with the National Association of State Directors of Career and Technical Education, we have been working with the National Governors Association and the Council of Chief State School Officers since the whole concept of the Common Core started. We commented on it. We've been involved. The fact that report talks about being able to apply these standards and these academics came out of that discussion. We are now in discussions with the two consortiums that are working on the assessments. And I know Pearson Foundation is working on curriculum along those lines and has reached out to us to talk about, how do we integrate CTE into these as well. And it's also going to be, the responsibility of states and CTE people in those states to look at their technical curriculum and make sure that it is aligned with the Common Core standards. Just as, over the past, decades, CTE has been aligning it with the academic standards. So all of it's going to be needing some tweaking at this point. But I can tell you that ACT and others are working to try to facilitate the process to make it as efficient and as effective as possible.
Okay, thank you. I think that's it for questions for the moment. Do you want to move on to CTE's role in dropout prevention?
Absolutely. So, as we said before, it's an alternative delivery method. To help with dropout prevention. CTE in many cases offer smaller learning communities. They are connecting the middle school with the high school. They're offering accelerated programs. They are about dual credit. You'll find the early middle college where you have CTE that's being offered at the community college level. So there are a lot of different methodologies. A lot of our career tech centers across the country have alternative education programs that are really helping students who are at danger of dropping out because they're very far behind get individualized attention, catch up with their academic credit, but also do it in an applied manner and also learn some kind of occupational skill so that they can become productive. And many of them are going on to post-secondary as well. And again, it's connecting them to that real-world career-oriented curriculum. I think one of the unique advantages of career and technical education are the student organizations. Where they have millions of people who are involved in these student organizations that have an adult advisor. They have a mentor in an adult who knows them, who connects with them, who works with them on a regular basis. And we do know from research that it positively affects their academic achievement as well as their completion in high school. A recent study done by Skills USA shows that those students that participate in Skills USA have a high school graduation rate of 97%. So, you can't argue with those results. It is connection. And because one of the things that's so great about the student organizations is that it's the competitions. It's not only leadership development. They have leadership programs. Is they enter into competitions so students get positive feedback on what they're doing. They get to really apply what they're doing and to demonstrate it to others. They also are very big on service learning and citizenship, going out there and doing programs out in the community. And it really connects them to other people and gives them a purpose to what they're doing. And what this younger generation tells us is that they are looking for value in their lives. They want what they're doing to connect to more than themselves. And the student organizations give them that opportunity to do that. So one of the examples, if we go to the next slide, that we wanted to share with you was the Gateway to Success program that is done by Great Oaks Institute of Career and Technology in Cincinnati, Ohio. And through a partnership with the University of Cincinnati's Claremont College, it expanded, and it's since expanded to Cincinnati State, Technical and Community College and Southern State Community College. It's computer-based. And so the students can complete their coursework in a self-paced environment using online resources, software, materials, all aligned to the state standards. There again, we're talking about technology. It's like, what a novel idea. What the classes are held on a college campus. It's open to anyone over the age of 18. And it's flexible time, so it meets the needs of a very diverse student population. And students can enroll anytime during the year, with the stipulation that they must complete 15 hours of on-site course week per week. They take an assessment and develop an individual graduation plan to make sure that everything they're doing, every class they take, counts towards their graduation. And during the program's first year, 50 students participated, and close to 70% of the participants passed the Ohio graduation test on the first try. Now think about it. These were kids that had just dropped out and were caught very early, and because of a special program, 70% of them passed on the first time. So they've had more than 276 students are enrolled in the Gateway to Success programs. 326 students have graduated, and another 52 students have earned their GED, and 172 are in post-secondary education classes, which is what we say is very important. So there are some wonderful examples out there of how we are, connecting to these people.
Jan, is there a database somewhere of these particular programs where listeners can find out more information, like Gateway and others?
If you go to the ACTE website, and we do share these programs, if you go under CTE issues and click on Dropout, there is one on Dropout. It takes you to a lot of sites. It takes you to our issue brief. ACT has an issue brief where we talk about several examples related to dropout prevention, and there are some other examples on there as well.
Oh, terrific. Now we got another caller, and this is an old friend, Carl from Nome, Alaska. And Carl, we're happy to have you back on the show. Now we have an ethical dilemma here because I think his name's in the hat already. I don't know.
I think it goes in the hat twice.
I think it goes in the hat twice. So Carl, welcome again to Solutions. And have you got a comment or a question for Jan Bray?
Oh boy, do I have lots of comments. Number one, thank you so much for all the information. This is really helping us out a lot. The director and other person were here, and we're just listening to a lot. One of the questions earlier was about citizenship. If you could specifically tell me more about what specific training for the students, knowing that the relevancy, I can understand the relevancy, but specifically what sort of citizenship training specifically is recommended?
Well, you know what? If you are in agriculture education, ag science, and you are a member of FFA, and there are over 450,000 students in this country that belong to FFA, they have a whole competition in learning having to do with parliamentary procedure and citizenship. So the student organizations are really teaching you about, how to be a good citizen. But in addition, and what I was really focused on is the fact that most of the students in these student organizations are doing service learning projects. They are getting out into the community, whether it's providing, food to the homeless, whether, you have in the health sciences, you have young dental hygienist students are going into the elementary schools and doing, talking about, dental care, taking care of your teeth, and even doing some simple dental care with young elementary students in low-income neighborhoods. So they're learning about giving back, which is a major part of citizenship. So, the projects that are done in career and technical education, and most students belong to a student organization, which, by the way, are co-curricular. These are not just after-school activities. They are part of the curriculum, whether it's in marketing and you're part of DECA, whether it's, in health and you're part of HOSA, et cetera. They are part of the curriculum, and they all include the opportunity to go out into the community, whether it's with the senior citizens, the young people, etc. But what they are doing is connected to what they are learning in the school. So it's a way for them to understand I can give back through my interest and through the potential work, job direction I want to go in. There's an opportunity to connect being a good citizen with making a living.
All right. Hey, thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thank you, Carl.
And
Carl.
we'll take that into account. It is snowing up here today, so I don't know about the agricultural aspect, but I know that there are a lot of other student organizations. Thank you again so much.
Thank
well,
you,
no
Carl.
problem. And I've been to Alaska a number of times. You actually have very good programs up there, and but I'm glad I'm not up there right now.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much.
Okay, thanks, Carl.
And Jan, I know we have a lot more to cover, and we certainly want to give you the time to do that. But when you were going through the results from Great Oaks, and you talked about the fact that one of the strategies there was the individual graduation plan. It took me back to the beginning of your presentation, and when you asked the question about where do we begin, often we're starting too late with that. I know with the Education and Economic Development Act here in South Carolina and in some other states, that begins as early as grade 8. And while there was some controversy about that, I think some people feeling that's too young to begin. That seems to be working out, at least in terms of orienting kids in this direction with an IGP before they enter high school. But how do you feel about that? And is there an ideal time to begin, or is it ever too late to begin?
It's always too late. It's never too early, we should say. I strongly support that, and there are many other states that do that. I know in South Dakota, the CTE teachers and guidance counselors and career counselors go into the middle school, and they work with those students. And when the students are entering 9th grade, they have an individual graduation plan. They should, and it doesn't mean it's static. It doesn't mean it can't change. But again, at what point, if I had my way, I always say when I'm emperor, we need to start in elementary school. We need to start with activities that allow young people to begin to explore the world of work. They're not going to make decisions at that age, and we understand that, but they need to begin to explore it. And the depth of exploration and the sophistication of the exploration needs to then build as they're going through it, so that by the time they get to 8th grade, they have the skills, and we've given them the resources for them to make those decisions. The challenge is you take someone in 8th grade, and we all know at that point they're going through so many changes in their life, and now we say, so now you need to think about the rest of your life, and it's just very difficult. It shouldn't be some monumentous occasion. It should be something that progresses naturally throughout their entire education career. And so as when they get to the 8th grade, they start to put structure into it, into an individual graduation plan. What is great in South Carolina, Sam, where you are, is the legislation that organizes education around career clusters, so that even if a student doesn't know exactly where they're going, but they're interested somewhere in the agriculture area, and there are a lot of different pathways they can take, but in high school they can begin to identify, I like this ag area, and I'm going to begin to take those foundational classes that are going to help me decide how I begin to navigate my way through this broad cluster. And so we need to start that early on, not when they're graduating high school, and not when they're seniors in high school, because it's a little late to do anything at that point. So, so we'll go quickly. I know we're beginning to run out of time, but to the next slide, which is the integration of CTE and academics. And there's more and more of happening with this, which is really important. I mean, as we said, the Perkins Act, which federal legislation that oversees career and technical education, talks about and promotes the integration of rigorous and challenging academic and CTE. So some examples of how it's being done is, power equipment and motorcycle technology can be counted as a physics credit in Colorado. You have construction geometry and a carpentry course in Kentucky that is integrating the academic and technical that is allowing that. I think the construction geometry embeds 23 state standards for geometry into the CTE program. So more and more you're seeing that. And that's how it should be. It is the application of knowledge. And so we say it requires, 4 years or so many credits of math, science, and English language, and they absolutely should have it. But that's not all they need. They need a well-rounded education, and there's only so many hours in the day for these young people, and only so many hours teachers are in the classroom. So the only way we're going to be able to meet the requirement that we prepare people for their next step beyond high school and engage them when they're in high school is to integrate the academic and the CTE. So if we continue on to the next slide, and it talks about the math and CTE program, which done by the National Research Center, where they took math and CTE teachers and they took the math content, which had already been identified and already embedded in the CTE course, but they aligned the curriculum and the activities and the lesson plans, and the math and the CTE teachers worked together. The math teachers helped the CTE teachers understand how to teach math. And so there was a year of professional development. It is still understanding the pedagogy of all of this. It isn't just taking a curriculum and plopping it down. And what they found at the end of this study is that those that had that integrated math and CTE program performed as well, and in many cases better than those that just had the CT program, and as well or better than those that just did the academic. Again, it is an example of how the integration, and research time and again is showing this, of how the integration is having a positive impact on the student learning and keeping them in school. It is also helping very much the teacher collaboration, which is so important. We need to begin to move schools into common planning time so that we're looking at it and focusing on the student and how to engage them in learning, not on the structure of the school and not on the structure of how the day works. And so the integration of CTE certainly helps that as well. If we go to the next slide, which is the other ways.
And powerful and targeted professional development also. This was really powerful research, I think, coming out of the National CTE Research Center, and really evidence of the need for CTE academic integration. And I believe that there is a study also that seeks to replication of this in the area of science.
Yes, they're working on that now. They've got preliminary results out. That was the next one that they were doing. And if you go up to the ACT website, it has a link to the National Research Center, or you can go to nrccte.org, and you can find all of their studies and the results of their studies. And so, I urge you, and ACT also includes in ours the snapshot, the summaries of the studies they've come out with.
Great.
All right, so if we could move, I'm going to actually, since I already talked about it, skip the last integration in academics and go to the program of study slide. And quickly, because I know there's a lot of interest in that, but it basically, a program of study incorporates both secondary and post-secondary education elements. It breaks down the silo between high school and post-secondary. And so you're beginning the process in like your junior year, sometimes even earlier, and you're not completing that curriculum until you are finished either the 1 or 2 year program, in the post-secondary. So it's a sequence of courses that progress through high school into post-secondary education. It includes a lot of opportunities for dual or concurrent enrollment, and it should, at the end, a program of study, at the end of it, leads towards an industry credential or certification. So, the National Academy Foundation with their engineering and biomedical science programs and Project Lead the Way are great examples of programs of study, but every state is required, and local education agency is required to have at least one. More and more states are doing all of their CT programs in programs of study. Again, it hooks back to the need for post-secondary education. And if you go quickly to the next slide, slide, I know it gets a little confusing. This is the framework of the program of study that was put out by the Office of Vocational and Adult Education at the Department of Education. So it really brings in business and industry into it. It brings in, it's the education, the sequence of courses that align to the technical, that align to some kind of credential, and industry is very engaged in it. Programs of study is a great avenue for achieving all that we've been talking about in terms of integrated learning, connection to what the workplace needs, connection to post-secondary, and helping students see the progression from where they are at the beginning to where they need to go towards the end to have a meaningful and successful life in the workplace.
Well, before you go on, I'm just going to, we're going to offer the opportunity for listeners to call one more time, perhaps before the program's over, and that number, again, is 888-539-8859. And so at the moment, we can move onward.
All right. The next slide is just a sample. It's the 16 career clusters. As we said earlier, South Carolina breaks down into the career clusters. These were developed by the state directors of CTE with a grant from the Department of Education. And so as we're looking at how we organize education in our programs of study, so you have your career clusters, and those break down into 81 pathways, and then from there they break down even more into programs of study. So again, a natural progression of how things work. So if we go...
Jan, before you go on,
yeah.
I have some questions I've been holding off on. Whenever you mentioned the word rural, I mean, you mentioned a school that was doing very well. It was in a rural area. But when I see that this is only a sample of the 16 career clusters, that there are many more, and how do rural schools offer this? And what does it look like when you go in these schools and see these career clusters? And I'd like to kind of see a visualization of it. And then also my second question is, how do you handle this, and what are the number of career clusters a rural school, for example, or any school could offer?
Well, they don't. So it really, the schools don't offer all of the clusters. States don't offer all of the clusters. You have some states that will say, we'll organize around 16 career clusters, and what they say to the schools is, pull out those clusters that you have either teachers for, interest in, or there's an economic need for. Some states have combined these down into 8 or 9 clusters, or are only picking up 8 or 9 clusters. With the decision making around this, in terms of what clusters you offer, goes back to something I said at the beginning, which is career and technical education needs to align to the economic development plan of the state or the region. So if you are a highly industrial, if your state is really looking to make green jobs, in energy and transportation, the focal point of where it's going, then you're going to certainly want to provide those clusters within your schools and those pathways in your schools. So there are decisions that have to be made, but it's a local decision that has to be made. Not all schools, most schools don't provide all clusters. They can't. It's impossible to do that. In rural schools, they struggle. And so, because a lot of it is because they just don't have the teachers there. But you'd be amazed at what they do manage to provide and the level of the education that they provide. Some of it, they have teachers teaching multiple. I know one teacher is teaching culinary arts, math, and is also the CTE coordinator in their high school. And so, they teach multiple programs in those rural areas, and then they bring in the online education as well into that. And that's the challenge we have in the rural program. Many of them in the rural areas are looking at, based where they are. Maybe it's in, you look at Wyoming. The natural resources their economy is based on that. They're going to provide more and more in the natural resources area, the agricultural, food, and natural resources. That's going to be a major area for the state of Wyoming, given what their economy bases in that state. Doesn't mean they don't provide other programs, but as they're looking at what clusters they're going to do. But it is a challenge for the rural areas. There's absolutely no doubt about that.
Right. Well, thank you.
All right. So finally, as we go to the basically the last slide. CTE, there is a new vision for CTE. CTE is moving forward. It's preparing students to succeed in education and careers. People think about it as just succeeding in careers. It's succeeding in education and careers. It's more and more it is delivered through comprehensive programs of study that are aligned as where feasible to the career cluster framework. It's results driven that demonstrates a positive return on investment. We are held just as accountable as anyone else. And it is aligned with the current discussions as we are talking about related to college and career ready, the issue of STEM, Common Core standards, the assessments, Elementary and Secondary Education Act, the Workforce Investment Act. CTE is actually the glue that holds all of this together. It connects education with the workplace. It connects secondary and post-secondary. It connects, it gives the students the ability to see where they stay and where they are in the whole scheme of their life, what they're doing. CTE and STEM are basically one and the same. STEM is very integrated into almost all CTE. It is really the heart of everything. And so if you take CTE away, you might have a lot of good mathematicians and a lot of good scientists, but they won't know what to do with it. And so they're not going to go into a lot of those jobs. Plus, if you take CTE away, you're going to lose the infrastructure of this country because you won't have the welders, the plumbers, the construction people. You won't have people to work on those wind turbines and those solar panels that they're talking about, somebody to deal with the oil and gas that we're so dependent on, who's going to help, take our x-rays when we're sick, who's going to clean our teeth, who's going to cook in those restaurants. I mean, there's just every walk of life. Homeland security, that's coming out of career and technical education. Law enforcement is a major part of career and technical education. The military loves CTE because we give them very educated and well-trained individuals, which helps them in the military. So CTE and our security are connected very, very closely. So it's hard to think of anything in this country that isn't connected to CTE. The challenge is for us to make sure that our programs are rigorous, they're relevant to what's needed in this country, that we talk the same language as others in this country, and that those of us in career and technical education understand the importance of what we do and make sure we share that importance to others as well. And so the last slide is just the information of how you contact the website for ACT plus my contact information if anybody wants to reach out to me at any time with any questions, ideas, comments, or to share an example. We love collecting best practices, so we take them at any time.
Well, and I'm sure our leaders will take advantage of it. I think all I can say right now is, phew, and wipe my brow.
I know.
I feel like we've been running, and I know as we talked before this program started, Jan, you were afraid of maybe speaking too fast, but quite frankly, a slower speaker would not have given us near the information you've been able to give us in this short hour, and we appreciate that so much. This has been a wonderful and informative program today. I was really happy to hear from one of our listeners who called in who said that this is really helping us. We love hearing that because that's the purpose of these programs, and I think that they really do help both in the information that people get through interacting and listening to you and to our guests, and also by going then to the archives and visiting those resources and delving into this a little more. And then the offer that you've just made, I'm certain that you'll get some response to that. So it's been a valuable hour, Jan, and we really appreciate your taking the time to be with all of us and all of our listeners today.
Well, thank you. It's been a pleasure.
And I wanted to add my thanks. And Sam talked about the archives, and you're talking about how CTE is the glue to connect everything. And I was writing down lots of things that you had an extensive list, but I had some more. And I thought that when you mentioned the students wanting to give back to their community, I thought, yes, this blended model of service learning and CTE is perfect. And we have many archive programs on service learning. And the other one I thought of, Sam, was the one we had in March on project-based learning. So if you want to dig into an hour of how to implement that, look at the archives and see the March program.
Yeah, Advanced Technology Education, ATE, which is all
and that's another one. That's another one.
And Jan touched on how some of this is delivered, and that's an excellent program.
Yes, and this is a great assignment for our listeners for the summer, is to see how many connections you can make from all the solutions programs to CTE. But thank you so much, Jan, for being here.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Well, we want to remind our listeners that the radio webcast will be archived, and as you heard, your homework assignment, this one will be up in about 2 hours, and it's going to be on your iPod, so you can go back and listen or provide this hour for your professional development. If you are the only one to hear it, share it with those that you work with. But it's certainly a very useful tool for you to use. We do have something special now to do, Sam.
We do. We have all the entries for the selection of our winner for a free registration at our national conference. And Marty has typed up all of those names and put them in a hat. You'll have to trust us that you're all there, but I can assure you that you are. And I'm going to ask her if she'll pull a name out of that hat now as our winner.
Well, normally we have to be real careful with the paper, but this time I'm making sure you know that I am stirring up the pot here. So we're very fair, and Sam can vouch for the fact I'm closing my eyes. And I've pulled out one piece of paper. This is so much fun. And the winner is Josh. I hope I pronounced your name correctly, Josh. I'm forgotten it. Guddat, Guddat, from Grand Junction, Colorado. So, Josh, I remember your group calling in, and I congratulate you and hope to meet you in Chicago. Isn't this cool?
That's terrific. Congratulations, Josh, and we will be in touch with you with more information. All right, it's time for summer break here at Solutions, and we are interested in hearing your ideas for future programming as we plan next year's professional development programs. We look forward to being with you again on the second Tuesday in September for the next Solution to the Dropout broadcast. Use the same email address that you use for calling in, and send us any ideas and suggestions that you might have for next year's programs. We always want to hear from you, and we want to make these programs relevant to you. Thanks to all of you for listening and participating. Remember, we know why students are dropping out of school, and with these research-based solutions, we can assure that all of our students graduate. Join us next time for more Solutions to the Dropout Crisis.